This is like 4th of July Eve, but I figured to talk more in detail about a two-dimensional human being. You know, none of us has really ever heard of anything like that. We don't know anything about dimensions. If we do, it's Twilight Zone. You understand? But I'm going to come out of this book right here. So if you're a very intellectual mind, you need to get this book. Because eventually, when you get out of it completely, numbers really ain't real. That's the deception. All right, but what we're going to do is what we have to do is we got to look at this. Okay, if we're looking at AI, the current, the same way that the ocean waves are, and there's a current, the current got them. Okay, that's how strong the current is to just suck whatever it is back out into the ocean. Is the same way with this. It's the frequencies, it's the repetition, it's the programming of the optic nerve, and to create a two-dimensional human being. So in order for you that's been struggling watching some of this to grasp what you're barely hanging on to, this will blatantly prove to you that your subconscious is in a prison. Not only that, it's not even in a cube prison. So what we're saying is we have to read just a few things. And then what I'll have to do is apply what we've read, add a few things, and just look at some very simple images, pictures. Because pictures is what we're going to get into as far as having a two-dimensional mind. Okay, when we're looking at the subconscious and what's in here. It says, what is space? We usually say that space is all around us, that we walk around in space and so on. To gain a clearer idea of space, we must accept a higher level of abstraction. We call the space we move around in three-dimensional. It extends upward and downward, to the right and to the left, and forward and backward. It has length, width, and height. That's a cube. When we look at objects, we see them as occupying three-dimensional space. That is, as possessing a certain length, width, and height. And I tried to draw something. So, if that's you in the middle, your perspective, the lines will center in. They'll feed into the center. Okay? And if we can draw out what you see the little dots on the left and right, that's going to be your peripheral going up. And then man, I got a fly in here. Go, buddy. And then it would all go, if you could map it out, it would be a cube. Length, width, and height. Okay? So it would be like this. If you could put that to what you're seeing and understand that completely. And it says, we must deal with the details of the concept of space, however, if we wish to achieve greater clarity. Let's look at the simplest solid shape, the cube, as the clearest example of length, width, and height. The length and width of a cube's lower surface are equal. When we raise this lower surface until its height above its original location is the same as its length or width, we get a cube, that is a three-dimensional figure. When we examine the boundaries of a cube, we find that they consist of plane surfaces which are bounded in turn by sides of equal length. A cube has 6 such plane surfaces. I'm not going to get into a plane surface. We're just going to get right over here. It says, Let's consider some of the other astute thoughts mathematicians have had on this subject. We human beings think, hear, feel, and so on in three-dimensional space. Okay? In this little bit of time, you should understand that you should see or understand that you have a three-dimensional. Now we're putting a physical math problem to what you actually see with your eyes, length, width, and height. Okay? Let's imagine beings capable of perceiving only in two-dimensional space. Their bodily organization would force them to remain in a plane, so they would be unable to leave the second dimension. They would be able to move and perceive only to the right and left and forward and backward. They would have no idea of anything that exists above or below them. Okay? Now, when we're looking at your society, go, buddy. When we're looking at you, this is who you are, and when you were spit out into this world, you only see so high. So you're a two-dimensional being, because on the side right here, we're going to have signs everywhere. Billboards, ads, and all that everywhere. There's going to be radio waves. So you take these arrows out. You never look up. That's our whole point. You look to the left and to the right and forward and back, and that's it. You're a two-dimensional being. Okay? That's the whole thing. And if you say no about that up there, where do you learn space? Inside. Where do you watch stuff? Inside. So that means it takes that away, which would be a third dimension. If we take a picture of a rose, and then we create a rose that looks exactly like that rose, and it's plastic, and we sit them beside each other, and we made it that fast, and they look exactly the same. That's a three-dimensional object. It has length, width, and height. It's within a cube that you can't see. But yet, when the real rose grows, now it's not the same. Now it grew out of that same picture. This one's the same as it was when it took a picture of it. So now what's happened is you're going into the fourth dimension. Now you're getting outside of the fucking cube. Do you understand? So now you've just found out you have only two dimensions, left and right. You have nothing at all when it comes to nature, what's above your head, the unseen, all that shit. And it's very, 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 very important. Okay? And I strongly suggest that you get that book, because, you know, when you're talking about certain objects, see, the trick is this, to prove our point that you're two-dimensional. Okay, you're inside Googling about what's up there, so that's gone. So just like the rose, you're in a two-dimensional prison within your subconscious, and within that two-dimension, you have a fucking black magic device telling you what to do, telling you all your answers and all that shit. And that's the Twilight Zone. You can't get out of that shit, because this has always been you, because you're designed to be two-dimensional. For one, you won't accept that you're a math equation. Literally. You are. Your blood has code, so, you know, and the blood is literally, you just learn how to control people through impulses, and that's it. But our whole point is now you found out that you're literally a two-dimensional being, Because inside you get the answers. You're still left and right, and that's it. Doesn't matter what you get and what's in there. It's still a lie. It's all a lie. So you're two-dimensional, and you've absorbed so much black magic that you won't get out of it. So that's the whole thing about the cube of Saturn being a prison, because it is. Harvesting souls. Shattering spirit. We can't stress that enough. So, you know, I'll just show you one example of one of these. There you go. That's in some of the notes or whatever. That's just one of the small examples. Rhombic dodecahedron. You know, when you get into, like, I can't, this brain and me can't understand any of this. But the crazy thing is he has to cross into the materialism of numbers, which is Ahrimanic, write shit like this in order to get you to possibly wake up and see what it is, because all the imprint, the printing press and all that shit, the invention comes from that up there. That's the true imprint up there. And then you're an imprint of everything out there in nature came out of you at one point in time. And see, you have the same passions and desires and shit that these fucking animals do, and you have to conquer those. And your impulses that's inserted through this keeps you in your animal nature, because you're two-dimensional. You're black magic. That skull and bones, I wear that because it's to rub it in their face. You know, in the order 322, you know, 22 letters, the Kabbalah. When we get into like Hebrew and shit, it has to do with all of that. The Sephiroth and stuff has to do with major shit, but that's still written out. Before it was written out, it was just passed down orally. I'm being for real. And what's fucking them up is all this coming through me is it's Saturnian, and there's nothing they can do about it. Nothing. They got to sit back and just watch. But see, now I'm literally giving it to you like it should be able to make sense when we're showing you like this is who we are. And everywhere there's billboards, all that to keep that, you know, I'm evil, I'm Satan. So I'm creating human beings and thinking and thought, and I have to keep their minds in two dimensions because I'm a fucking expert at numbers. You understand? And numbers is what I come through numbers. We summon demons through numbers and shit. So it's not hard to see that. The hardest thing is to come out of that, to see that equation for what it is. And I very doubt that your soul and your spirit's got that much willpower and drive because it's been taken through this. This is your worth. This creates no height, no looking up, nothing. This is a two-dimensional being holding this device. And this tells the two-dimensional being what to do along with all the billboards and all that. And it's a current. It's a two-dimensional current controlling all through their blood and everything. So I got to get something to eat. I love you.